Story 1. The summer I turned 10 promised to be amazing. My family had just moved to a new house, deep in the countryside. It wasn't grand, just an old farmhouse with a sprawling, untamed garden and a forest right behind it. My parents, dad, and mom were absorbed in unpacking, so I had ample time to explore. I'm Alex, by the way. One afternoon, I was out in the garden, endeavoring to construct the world's finest fort from old branches and tarps. The sun was warm and the air smelled of cut grass and soil. A sound broke the quiet. It wasn't loud, merely a soft rustling, like someone walking through dry leaves. I looked up. Standing at the edge of our garden, right where the forest began, was an individual. They were tall and slender, wearing a large dark coat even though it was sunny. A broad-brimmed hat was pulled low, obscuring their face. They simply stood there, motionless, observing me. My heart gave a little jump. It was strange. We hadn't seen any neighbors, not yet, and this person wasn't on the road. They were simply present. "Hello?" I called out. My voice came out a bit high-pitched. The person said nothing. They remained still. They simply continued their gaze. A strange tingle began on my skin, like when you know someone is watching you, even if you can't see them. I decided to return to my fort. Perhaps they would depart. I picked up a sizable branch, pretending to be deeply engrossed, but I kept sneaking glances. They were still there, still observing. After a few minutes, I found I couldn't endure it. "Can I help you?" I inquired, trying to sound brave, though my knees felt weak. Slowly, with measured pace, the person raised an arm and pointed a long, bony finger directly at me. They uttered no sound, but the pointing felt profoundly significant, like a spotlight shining on me. Swallowed hard. I must go inside now," I mumbled, dropping the branch. I began backing away, cautiously at first. Then I turned and nearly sprinted towards the house. I burst through the back door, closing it firmly behind me. "Alex? What troubles you?" Mom called from the living room. There was someone in the garden," I said, my voice quivered. "They just stood there and watched me." Mom came into the kitchen, wiping her hands on a dish towel. "Oh dear, it was probably just a hiker or perhaps a neighbor checking out the new. Folks, do not worry, everyone here is quite amiable." She smiled, but I sensed she believed I was overreacting. I didn't mention the hat, nor the dark coat, nor their direct pointing. I knew she wouldn't grasp the unsettling sensation it brought. The following day, I was cautious. I stayed closer to the house, playing on the porch. But that tingle persisted, like eyes upon me. I'd glance towards the forest, but they remained, unseen. Only at dusk, I was helping Dad carry some boxes into the shed. Darkness gathered and shadows stretched, appearing eerie. We entered and exited a few times. On our final trip, upon leaving the shed, I saw it. There, leaning against the large oak tree at the garden's edge was the same individual, the dark coat, the broad hat. But this time, they weren't simply observing. Their hands made a slow, odd, disjointed gesture, almost like a wave. And I heard a sound, a faint, raspy whisper that resembled my name. "Ah, Lex." I froze. "Father," I whispered, grabbing his arm. "Observe." Father turned, peering into the deepening gloom. "What is it, child?" When he finally looked, the area beneath the tree was vacant. Only the ancient oak stood there, its boughs swaying softly in the evening wind. Merely nothing. I murmured, my voice almost inaudible. I was certain of what I'd witnessed. I was certain of what I'd heard. That night, sleep eluded me. Every minor creak of the old house seemed like footsteps. Every rustle of leaves beyond my window resembled that peculiar whisper. A few days later, matters grew truly unsettling. I was playing with my toy cars on the living room rug. Mom was upstairs, vacuuming. Dad was at work. The front door remained secured, but the back door, leading to the kitchen, was typically only latched, not keyed. Unexpectedly, a soft click reached my ears. My head shot up. It sounded like the back door. I froze, listening. Then, a slow, dragging sound, like something being pulled across the kitchen floor. My heart pounded against my chest. Mother was upstairs. I was solitary below. I slowly rose, advancing stealthily towards the kitchen. The sounds persisted, soft and consistent. Drag, drag. I peered around the doorframe. The kitchen lay in shadow, its curtains drawn. And there, positioned in the center of the floor, was the individual. The dark coat, the hat. In their grasp was something long and slender, akin to a staff. They drew it across the floor, creating that soft, abrasive sound. And they were looking at me. Their head inclined slightly, and though their eyes remained unseen, I perceived them. Their stare, cold and weighty, pierced me. I could not cry out. I could not stir. My breath caught in my throat. Then, they lifted the object they held. It wasn't a staff. It was a long, slender, wooden doll. It appeared quite ancient, with painted eyes that gazed blankly forward. And as they elevated it, I noticed one of its arms was fractured, dangling at an unnatural angle. They slowly drew the doll nearer, almost embracing it, and then, a sound. Not a whisper now. A low, soft chuckle. It lacked cheer. It resembled dry leaves crumbling. At that instant, the vacuum upstairs ceased. Mother had finished. The person stiffened. For an instant, they looked towards the ceiling. Then, swiftly, they departed. Not running, but smoothly moving. They vanished through the back door before I could even blink. The door opened slightly, admitting a cool draft. Mother descended the stairs with a clatter. "Alex, did you hear that?" she inquired, entering the kitchen. The back door was ajar. I merely stood there, trembling. I couldn't disclose the doll. I couldn't disclose the chuckle. She still wouldn't credit my account of the individual. From that day forward, I secured every entrance and window immediately upon returning home. I never ventured into the garden unaccompanied. Each shadow, each creak, each distant sound caused my stomach to tighten. We resided in that house for 5 additional years. I never clearly observed the individual again. But at times, when outdoors, I would experience that tingle, that sensation of being observed. And occasionally, deep into the night, I'd discern a faint, raspy whisper borne on the wind, a whisper strongly resembling my name. "Ah, Lex. I am an adult now, but at times, when solitary in a tranquil place, I still recall that dark coat and broad hat, and I ponder, who was that individual, and what did they seek from me? I remain uncertain, and occasionally, that is the most frightening aspect." Story 2. It was a Tuesday afternoon, somber and damp outside, and I was curled up on the couch with my dated laptop. My name is Maya, and I was simply performing my customary after-school routine, checking my email for anything noteworthy. It was primarily unsolicited mail or school assignments, quite uninteresting content. I scrolled through numerous subject lines. Exclusive deal. Your delivery is en route. Note, math assessment Friday. Then, one captured my attention. It stated, "Your parcel has been delivered." How delightful, I considered. I hadn't placed any orders, but Aunt Carol occasionally sends me unexpected books, and the email address resembled that of a delivery firm, for instance, shipmentsdeliveryco.com. It appeared entirely ordinary, indistinguishable from any previous email I'd received from a delivery service. The logo was present, the customary blue and white hues, and the typeface was sharp and clear. I opened it. The email began, "Greetings, esteemed client," which was typical. It indicated a parcel had been successfully delivered to my address. It even provided my street address, which wasn't unexpected, given that such firms typically possess this information. Then it stated, "Contents. Handcrafted wooden bird." Handcrafted wooden bird? That felt somewhat peculiar. Aunt Carol typically sent books or art materials, and I didn't recall anyone else dispatching such an item. I peered closely at the screen. Below that, it contained a small tracking number and a button prompting, "Select here to acknowledge delivery." I moved my mouse cursor over the button. It appeared harmless. But then, I scrolled down a small amount further, simply to check for an image or additional content. That's when I noticed it. It was a brief paragraph at the bottom, almost concealed, in smaller gray print. It stated, P.S. We trust you will enjoy the small guest. It favors the window ledge in your sleeping quarters. My breath hitched. My bedroom. Window ledge? How could they possess such knowledge? My stomach performed an odd somersault. I surveyed my living room. Rain pattered on the window pane. All appeared customary. I scrolled back to the email's beginning. I re-examined the sender. shipmentsdeliveryco.com. It seemed genuine, but now my perception felt altered. The O in co seemed slightly too circular, perhaps? Or was I simply imagining things? I closed the email swiftly and reopened it. Perhaps I misread. No, it remained. It favors the window ledge in your sleeping quarters. My gaze darted to the windows, all secured. I looked at my bedroom door, which stood open down the corridor. I envisioned a small wooden bird perched there, observing. It was likely mere chance, correct? Perhaps a harmless jest from the delivery. Firm? But it didn't feel like a jest. It felt unsettling. Something else came to mind. The previous day, returning from school, I believed I'd seen a small shadow on my bedroom window ledge. I'd blinked, and it vanished. I convinced myself it was simply a passing bird, or sunlight playing tricks. But what if it wasn't? My heart quickened its pace. I rose from the couch and slowly proceeded down the hall to my bedroom. The door stood fully ajar, exactly as I'd left it. I peeked within. All appeared customary. My bed was prepared. My books lined the shelf. My desk lamp was extinguished. Then, I examined the window ledge. It was vacant. But a faint, small smudge marred the dusty surface, resembling a tiny print or a minor mark where something had rested. It was barely perceptible, yet I perceived it. I retreated from my room, my hands slightly damp. I returned to the laptop. I did not select the Acknowledge Delivery button. Instead, I carefully erased the email. Then I purged it from the trash folder as well, simply for certainty. I recounted it to my mother later, attempting to present it as amusingly odd. Mother, I received a remarkably peculiar email today concerning a wooden bird delivered to my room. She merely chuckled. Oh dear, those are likely just unsolicited messages, attempting to induce you to click something. Do not trouble yourself with it. But I did find myself concerned. For subsequent weeks, I kept my bedroom curtains drawn at night. I consistently inspected my window ledge before retiring. And each time I accessed my email, my gaze would sweep the subject lines, seeking anything appearing overly normal, anything promising a parcel I hadn't requested. For at times, the most innocuous appearances can harbor the greatest unease. Story 3. My name is Leo, and I was thoroughly unengaged one Saturday afternoon. Rain fell outdoors and my friends were all occupied, so I was simply idly using my father's dated computer in the study. I had already viewed all my preferred cartoon clips and completed all my games. I resolved to seek something novel, something truly impressive. I entered most peculiar websites into the search bar, purely for diversion. Most results appeared rather uninteresting, like compilations of odd facts or comical images. But then, a unique link appeared. It lacked a typical address such as www.something.com. It was merely a series of random letters and numbers, like X7K.nom.MRRGH4. And the title alongside it was simply, The Quiet Place. I mumbled. It seemed somewhat enigmatic, so I selected it. The page loaded at a sluggish pace. It lacked flamboyance or vivid colors. The background was merely plain black, and the words were all in a drab gray typeface. No prominent image, no music played. Only a solitary sentence occupied the screen's center. Greetings. Are you solitary? My eyebrows rose. Yes, I am alone, I stated aloud, even though it was merely a web page. It was a somewhat eerie opening, akin to a horror film. Beneath that, 2 buttons were present, affirmative and negative. I chose affirmative. The page altered once more. This time, it stated, Excellent. We wouldn't desire any eavesdroppers, would we, Leo? My heart gave a slight tremor. Leo. How had it ascertained my name? I hadn't entered my name anywhere. I blinked, drawing nearer to the screen. Perhaps it retrieved it from my father's computer. Settings? But I consistently used my personal login. This felt distinct. A peculiar chill began, even though the room lacked coldness. I scrolled downward, my finger paused above the mouse. Another sentence appeared. Your window is unlatched. You should secure it. My gaze darted to the study window. It stood wide open, allowing in the damp, wet air. I had opened it earlier as it felt somewhat confined. I had not yet secured it. A shiver traversed my spine. This was no mere chance. This website held knowledge. It knew my name, and it knew my window was unlatched. My thoughts quickened. Was it observing me? By what means? I swiftly rose and forcefully closed the window, securing it firmly. My hands trembled slightly. I returned to the computer, my gaze fixed on the screen. The website had altered again, spontaneously. Now it displayed an image, not a photograph, but a drawing, akin to a child's sketch. It was a depiction of a house, and one of the windows in the drawing bore a small arrow indicating it. It was my study window, and within the depicted room, a small, dark figure sat at a desk, observing a screen. It was unmistakably meant to represent me. Beneath the image, new text materialized. We witnessed your closure. Excellent. You are acquiring knowledge. My stomach sank. My breath seemed lodged in my chest. This wasn't merely an odd website. It felt as if it possessed life and was observing me. I wished to power down the computer, but my fingers felt paralyzed. I could not avert my gaze. Then, a new line of text materialized, word by word, quite gradually. However, what of the upper level? The upper level. My sleeping quarters were upstairs, and my bedroom window was frequently left unsecured. My mind urged me to power off the computer, to flee, but I was trapped, fixed on the screen, my eyes wide. The image on the screen began to shift. The small, shadowy figure in the drawn study started to raise its head from the desk. Its head slowly inclined upward. And then, a small, dark shadow commenced appearing behind it, right at the drawing's periphery, near the depicted doorway. It resembled a very tall, slender individual. I gasped, a small, stifled sound. My heart throbbed so intensely I could perceive it in my ears. I scrambled away from the desk, toppling my chair with a noisy crash. I no longer cared for the computer. I simply needed to escape. I stumbled from the study, sprinted past the stairs, and directly into the living room, where my father had at last arrived, reading the newspaper. "Father! Father!" I cried, my voice trembling. "There's a web page. It possesses knowledge. It knows of my window. It drew an image of me." Father looked up, removing his reading spectacles. "Goodness, Leo. What troubles you? You appear ghostly pale." I attempted to explain, but the words spilled forth, all confused. It knew my name, and it stated my window was unlatched, and then it depicted my room. Father merely sighed. "Sounds like one of those deceptive websites aiming to frighten children. They likely just make assumptions, or perhaps you clicked something inadvertently." He smiled, seeking to reassure. "Do not trouble yourself with it. Simply close the browser." I knew it wasn't merely guessing. I was certain of what I'd witnessed. I did not re-enter the study that day. Father later went in and powered down the computer. He likely just exited the browser window. For weeks, the quiet place occupied my thoughts. I never sought it again, never wished to view that address with its random letters and numbers. And each single night, prior to sleeping, I ensured every window in the house was secured and bolted, particularly my bedroom window. Occasionally, deep into the night, when the house was silent, I still felt a slight shiver along my spine. And I'd ponder if the quiet place still existed, simply awaiting another person to enter most peculiar websites and select that single enigmatic link.